you must like dogs and cats.
I absolutely.
I guess, are you a dog person or a cat person?
So I'm both, but I happen to have dogs, and dogs are where I've spent most of my time doing rescue.
Got it. And so really this comes from, this company kind of formed out of, in some ways, a rescue situation. Talk a little bit about that.
So dating all the way back to 2001, I actually adopted a husky from actually a local group here, Seattle Humane, over here nearby in Factoria. And in adopting Daisy, I just learned, for me at least, how great dogs were and what they did for me. And so I got very active in rescue and helping the local groups. When Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005, had a chance to go down there, and it was really a surreal experience. You have an entirely empty city, and basically a bunch of animal rescuers and the military were allowed to go back into the city during the period of the floods. And everybody at that time had left their dogs and cats behind in their homes thinking, hey, we're going to be back in 48 hours. This happens, often down in New Orleans. And this time they weren't allowed back in. So for 3 weeks, we'd be roaming the streets of New Orleans, breaking into houses, trying to get dogs and cats out of their homes and ultimately to safer areas. And so it was through that process that I actually brought 12 dogs back with me.
Wow.
And that really started my
back here to Seattle?
Back here to Seattle. I had a private jet donated to me to fly 12 dogs back. I had to fly commercial. The dogs got to fly private.
That's funny.
And that really got me very actively involved in making it almost a full-time job. So locally here, I took over a large no-kill shelter as the executive director. And that ultimately led to me learning quite a bit about the health costs of trying to care for not only homeless pets, but then once they're adopted, the costs of caring from a healthcare perspective are increasing year after year. And so it was through that process that pet insurance came to mind, and we launched it in 2009.
And so you launched pet insurance, knowing that a lot of dogs and cats have needs, really. And it's not necessarily... it's the financial needs of their owners that you're really insuring in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, interesting stat. In Seattle, there's about 140,000 dogs and only 93,000 kids. So there's more dogs than kids in Seattle. There's more dogs than kids in San Francisco and a lot of the major cities.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's an interesting stat. And so what's happening in many cases, dogs are the new kids. And so the things that you're now willing to do, even 5-10 years ago, if a dog blew out an ACL, you're going to let the dog limp around. But today you're going to spend $3,000 to have that dog's knee fixed so it can go back to the dog park and chase tennis balls.
Put him on the PUP.
Yeah, exactly. And
just like Percy Harvin, hopefully not, right?
So it's amazing what people are willing to do for their dogs and cats. And so now, instead of being faced with a $5,000 or $10,000 bill and trying to figure out how you're going to pay for it, oftentimes by credit card, healthcare for dogs and cats is a very inexpensive alternative to protecting yourself financially.
So what kind of pets can be insured? You talk about a dog blow. How does a dog blow an ACL?
Well, actually, the chuckets.
I'm a big football fan, so I'm just thinking like roughhousing.
You go to the dog parks and the people have the chucket. So they put the tennis ball in the chucket and they launch the ball. Well, these dogs are, hurling at, 5, 10, 15 miles an hour. And then they do those really quick stops, just like a football player will.
Sure.
Out goes the knee.
No kidding.
And then once the left knee's gone, the right knee will go within a year. So the pet parent, and I call them pet parents rather than pet owners.
Okay.
The pet parent is now going to be faced with about $6,000 worth of vet bills. And they're going to pay it, or preferably they're going to let me pay those bills.
Right. So what kind of plans do people get? Because if somebody, does it cover everything? I couldn't even imagine a dog blowing an ACL. So it's interesting to hear that. I've always thought dogs get hit by cars.
Yeah, that too. So pet insurance is really all about...
So morbid, aren't I? I don't really think about dogs getting hit by cars often. That's just what I always thought pet insurance was for. So
we have everything about accidents and illnesses. And so everything from an ACL blowout, cancer, this is not the most fun topic, but diarrhea, strangely enough. If your dog has diarrhea for 2-3 days, you're going to panic. Well, Ben, you might not, but other people might. They're going to bring their dog.
I will, because guess who's cleaning it up?
They're going to bring their dog into the vet, and oftentimes something that simple is going to cost about $1,800. And what it is, it's the diagnosis. You got to do X-rays, you got to do blood tests, you got to figure out what's wrong with the dog or cat. And then you're going to give them antibiotics. You might actually have to do surgery. One of the more common yet bizarre accidents that we see are dogs eating corn cobs during the 4th of July. They swallow corn cobs whole, and then it becomes blocked. And now you have a $4,000 surgery to remove the corn cob. With cats, oftentimes it's sewing needles or other small objects that they swallow. And so the ranges of what now can cost thousands of dollars is so numerous I can't even count them all.
Are there things that aren't included? I have to ask. Are pre-existing conditions included?
So no. So
Okay.
unlike the Affordable Care Act and
Sure.
people insurance today, only about
It wouldn't be an interview if I didn't ask you about pre-existing conditions on
Exactly.
insurance, right?
only about 1.5% of all dogs and cats are insured in the U.S. today. In the U.K., it's about 20%. And so right now, a lot of the people that are looking for pet insurance are the ones that already have pre-existing conditions. You know, the dog's sick, it's limping. Now they call us. But that's a lot like your house is on fire. Now let me get insurance. Doesn't really quite work.
Sure,
that way.
my dog just blew his ACL. Where can I get that $19 a month
Yes,
insurance
so
to
that
fix
they
it?
pay. So pre-existing conditions by all companies are absolutely excluded. And then wellness, all the preventative care, the annual exams, the vaccinations, you really don't want an insurance company covering those expenses. It's not a good consumer value. The analogy is when you have auto insurance. Your auto insurance does not cover oil changes. If it covered oil changes, they're going to charge you the cost of those oil changes plus 50% because they got to make a profit. And so ultimately, it's all about accidents and illnesses. And at least in our case, we have unlimited lifetime benefits. So I've already paid total veterinary bills for a single dog over $30,000.
That's incredible. Steve Siadek joins me, co-founder of Healthy Paws Pet Insurance. So, Steve, you hear pet insurance, and people don't exactly like perk up. They're not exactly, hey, yeah, rah, rah, let's go get pet insurance. I mean, I know people who have it. I know people who don't. Does it get a bad rap? Does it feel like you're convincing people versus they want it? How does that work in your world?
You know, I think historically some of the older pet insurance companies were not providing the best value. And even amongst the veterinary community, there's a negative perception. But I would say over the past 5 years, 4 to 5 new companies like ourselves have come to the market. We've brought a high quality, very affordable product to consumers. And I think it really goes back to more of the mentality of pet parents and how their dogs or cats are their children now. And I'll use a story recently that we just posted to our website. There's a video on it. But Baxter was a 4-year-old dog that started limping, and it no longer could walk up the stairs. And the pet parents, very distraught about this, took Baxter into the vet, and they discovered it had a tumor kind of winding its way through its spine. Normally, the typical pet parent at that point would be faced either with putting the dog down or trying to afford very, very expensive vet bills. And they were insured with us. And it's a really interesting case where the surgery that was needed ended up being very experimental. It's called a cyberknife treatment. And it's actually a people treatment, human treatment that they've now brought into the pet space. And it basically is taking essentially a very focused radiation treatment and extracting or killing the tumor. And so $20,000 of cost to do this. But literally within about 2 weeks, the dog's back to walking and running around.
That's incredible.
And so when we talk about kind of people's perceptions of it, those stories are now getting out more and more. And people are now realizing that, hey, if I'm going to be faced with making a financial decision about my pet's health, I don't want to, right? I want to make sure that my pet can have the best care just like my children can and just like I can. So I think pet insurance more and more is going to be a positive topic for most people with pets.
It sounds like the service was really what gave it a bad rap. So how much does it cost? You know, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of good things for it. Is it how much is it?
So for dogs, it's about $1 a day. So I'd say on average about $30 a month. And you're dealing then with us paying 90% of those veterinary bills related to accidents and illnesses. For cats, it's even less. Cats cost about $20 a month.
Because they don't chase balls and blow ACLs.
They're normally inside more, right?
Yeah.
They're healthier. And so it's very inexpensive. And, there's a variety of companies to choose from out there, of course. Our customers have certainly raved about our service.
And we now recommend, Healthy Paws pet insurance, no doubt.